To watch the latest from India Science, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press on the bell icon to get notifications on all the science-related videos.
Namaskar and welcome to India Science, where it is our endeavour to take science and health to the masses. As India fights corona, we bring to you a very interesting conversation on the other side of the pandemic. Let's talk health. We are joined today by the HOD and professor at the very reputed All India Institute of Medical Sciences. In fact, he heads the very eminent pulmonary department at AIIMS. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Anant Mohan. Namaste and thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, most welcome.
Very kind of you to have taken out your time from your busy schedule. तो शुरुआत मैं करना चाहूँगी आपसे ये जानना चाहूँगी सर, as India fights the pandemic, how do you look at lung health if we talk of coronographics across the globe?
Well, first of all, pulmonary disease itself is a very big problem worldwide. We know that, and gradually it is becoming one of the most common causes of death, hospitalization. So already it was increasing because of various environmental factors like air pollution that you talked about, and now this is added to it. And unfortunately, the COVID virus has a tendency to affect the lungs and the respiratory tract most. And that is why we are seeing so many pneumonias and pneumonia related problems, and even post COVID pneumonia lung related problems are coming. So yes, it is true that because of this pandemic, the lung health has taken a bit of a beating. There is no doubt about it. The need of patients on ventilator, need of patients on oxygen, even though a small percentage, but translating into thousands and lakhs because of the large numbers. So these are challenging times for the physicians, the doctors, and especially the lung physicians who have to take care of all these things. So no doubt, but we are hopeful that we will tide over this as well.
Sir, if I may ask you, a lot of people have this question about the cold setting in. Earlier it used to be that India may see less numbers because of the warmer climate. How do you dispel this doubt, because the numbers are still rising and the surge is still happening? Now that the cold has come in, what is your advice to everybody? What kind of precautions should they take?
Well, first of all, the relationship between the weather, humidity and this virus has not been consistent. Right. Initially, yes, when it came in January 2020, it was thought that when the summer sets in India, cases may go down. Actually, that did not happen. And if I can just quote a couple of studies, there have been numerous studies now looking at various aspects of temperature, humidity and the risk of getting COVID, the risk of transmitting COVID to others, and also the severity. Unfortunately, the results have not been consistent. Some have found hot temperature and high humidity to be better, that means less chances of COVID, but some have found the opposite. And these results have been different in different countries. A lot of studies came from China which were also discordant, some from Turkey, some from USA, one from our place as well. But these are not live studies, they are basically all model based studies, based on the previous experiences, based on experiences of the 2003 the SARS coronavirus, the SARS that we had at that point of time. So the relationship is not linear, it is not direct. We should not say, or we should not assume that if the temperature becomes cold, things may worsen. If the temperature becomes hot, it may improve. We really cannot. So we have to maintain our own levels of precautions, whatever be the climate and humidity, because the climate and humidity alone has never been able to explain the increase or decrease in the number of cases. So that is, I think, we should remember. Climate, it may have a small part in different parts, but really it doesn't have a major part to play. As of now, we don't know about it.
So as you said, it's not about tropical or colder climates. Probably the studies need to be more comprehensive to be able to analyze this novel coronavirus or SARS-2.
Yeah, maybe one more season. If it goes to that, then maybe we can get something. But whatever we know, relationship has not really been directly inversely proportional or directly proportional to the temperature.
So, if we talk of AIIMS, it is known as the best pulmonary department of India now. So, we believe you've done a lot of stent and other laser interventions in pulmonology, and also for something to relieve the patient of air obstruction. How do you explain that?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true that in the last couple of years the concept of interventional pulmonology has taken off in this country, and we also, that is why we also kind of took the lead and we tried to make our bronchoscopy and pulmonary services state of the art, and we do perform a lot of stenting, and because we get a lot of malignant cases, a lot of lung cancer cases, many of them require stenting at least as a palliative measure. So, we have been doing these procedures for the last 4 or 5 years, and we have all my fellow colleagues and my residents, my fellow faculty, they are all very well competent, highly trained in this now, and all of them are eager and ready to learn this as well and do it. So, that helps in these patients quite a bit, and that is something which is one of the techniques to prolong the quality of life of patients, especially of cancer, but even of other diseases. Secondly, you talked about the airway problem, that probably you are referring to is the bronchial thermoplasty. So, that is a intervention which is reserved for patients with severe uncontrolled asthma. So, those who are not getting controlled with the medication that we have, because the air pipes are narrow and shrunken in a way and they prevent the air from going in and coming out easily. This is a therapy in which you put in a scope inside, a bronchoscope, and through a use of a probe we apply thermal energy onto the airway walls. Because of the thermal energy, the smooth muscle which is thickened over there, it gets kind of dissolved or reduced, thereby increasing the chances of air going in and out and causing relief to the patient. So, this is also something that we have started in the last 2 years. About 10 to 11 centers across the country have this, and total I think they have done more than 140, 150 cases, and we have done about 15-20. So, that helps also to some extent, although still our experience is limited in that, and I think over the next couple of months or years we will be able to give a better picture on
more
that.
perfection to this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on that note, we are going in for a short break. Stay tuned. When we come back, we will talk to Professor Anant Mohan about more on respiratory and lung disorders.
विज्ञान तथा प्रौद्योगिकी के प्रति लोगों की रुचि जगाने के उद्देश्य से साल 2019 में इंडिया साइंस चैनल की शुरुआत की गई। विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग द्वारा शुरू किया गया इंटरनेट आधारित ये विज्ञान वेब चैनल विभाग के स्वायत्त संस्थान विज्ञान प्रसार द्वारा संचालित किया जा रहा है। इस चैनल पर विज्ञान पर आधारित डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज, ताज़ा विषयों पर स्टूडियो चर्चा, साक्षात्कार और हर आयु वर्ग को आकर्षित करने वाली विज्ञान लघु फिल्में और साप्ताहिक कार्यक्रम प्रसारित किए जा रहे हैं। सोशल मीडिया और इंटरनेट की पहुंच आज हर जगह, हर व्यक्ति तक है। ऐसे में देश में वैज्ञानिक चेतना के प्रसार के लिए ये माध्यम सबसे उपयुक्त कहा जा सकता है।
Welcome back. You're watching a special conversation with Dr. Anant Mohan, Professor and HOD at the Pulmonary Institute, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. When we went back just before the break, you mentioned about asthma and disorders. Could you amplify a little more and extrapolate as to how asthma can affect in COVID cases?
All right. So, what we have seen and what is generally known is that although we know that COVID usually 80 to 85% recover on their own, it's a mild disease. However, there are about 5 to 10% of the patients who go in for more severe disease, and it is seen that those who are already having compromised or reduced lung functions or lung disease in the background, they tend to have more severe COVID infections, because already the lung is diseased, it is compromised, the airway is not working as much as it should, the oxygenation may not be proper. On top of that, if a COVID or corona pneumonia sets in, obviously the problem is going to be compounded. So, patients who have background history of lung disease like a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, what you call it bronchitis, or asthma, or even tuberculosis or tubercular sequelae for that matter, or any other lung disease, they are more prone to development of severe infections, and probably chances of going into severe disease are higher. Hence, they have to be more careful. These patients with respiratory diseases including asthma have to be kind of more careful when it comes to precautions. They have to be more careful when it comes to any symptoms. They have to be more vigilant, and they should seek attention more early. And from the physician side, we have to be more vigilant and be monitoring these patients very, very closely, because they might suddenly go into a more severe phase.
So, you rightly mentioned oxygenation, and in addition to that, there is this plasma therapy that is much talked about. So, if I give you an example of, say, an ex-patient who is admitted somewhere else, who has got this lung disorder and needs plasma, at what stage should that plasma be given effectively to cure? Because sometimes the lungs actually really pack up, and you can see that in the X-ray or the CT scan.
Well, yeah. So, the plasma therapy came suddenly about 3-4 months ago. It used to be quite what you call in fashion in a way. What happened was that the neutralizing antibodies in a donor who has already had this infection, so if that is transferred to a person who is now currently having the infection, though, so it helps to probably limit the infection in that person. That was the concept and thinking. In a way, the studies and the research which has been done in this area has not really supported the robust use of plasma therapy in treatment per se. That is why it is not yet there in the any national guidelines, but it is there as an experimental therapy which has been used quite a bit in many centers, and maybe to some benefit as well. Probably the best time to use plasma therapy would be at a stage of moderate disease. Patient in mild disease should not be given. In very severe disease also, probably it will be too late. When a person is not responding to the standard therapy of oxygen, steroids, and maybe any antivirals like remdesivir, if it is not he is not responding, that may be the time to consider a therapy like plasma therapy, in the hope that it may give benefit. But again, whether it actually does, we don't really know. The trials, including the ICMR supported trial, which was a multicentric trial, the PLACID trial, did not really support the actual use of plasma therapy alone in this situation, but it is being used nonetheless, and in an appropriate setting, probably yes, it may have some benefit.
So, supposing there is an asthma patient, another example, and the patient also has consistent cough, and then they start hallucinating sometimes that they have chest disorders and things like that, and then coupled with pradushan or air pollution, to put it in a common man's language, the problem becomes amplified even further. So, how do you deal with such patients, because they are not able to come to you at AIIMS?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing would be for these patients, one is we should spread a lot of awareness about the disease. If a person already knows he has asthma, he should be able to recognize the features of a superadded infection like corona. He should know that if this happens, that he should get tested immediately. So, one is self-medication should not be done. They should not kind of just sit at home thinking, okay, I'll take this, or maybe something else. Or I'll take a dolo. Yeah, something like that, or maybe even just go to a local doctor who may not really know what is going on and keep taking some medicines. So, self-medication should be discouraged. The signs of corona infection should be known to all. That is where the concept of public education and health awareness comes, and they should seek medical attention early if they have got any symptoms, rather than wait till a time it is too late and they land up in the hospital in a very, very bad state.
So, why is it that the coronavirus is affecting people in a different way? I would like to pose this question, even though I know that you are a lung expert, but in some patients it might attack the chest, in some it is going towards the lung side. These are two major ailments that are happening of late in the cases that we have seen across the country at least. So,
basically now we know that corona is not just affecting the lungs, it is a kind of a systemic inflammatory reaction. So, what happens is it causes certain changes to occur in the body, the changes of inflammation. So, there are certain changes which occurs, certain parameters are there, certain markers are there, like interleukins and other mediators, which spread across to other organs also, and that is why other organs are also involved. For example, we know that heart is also involved to some extent in corona infection. That is why we had problems with the cardiac patients. We know that there is problems of thrombosis, so there is coagulation of blood which happens, and that is why we had problems like thrombosis, like clotting in the vessels, including in the lungs, clotting in the lung vessels. So they are some problems that occur. It may have some problems in the brain as well, we don't really know, but it is an inflammatory response that may affect many organs of the body. Now that much we know. It may affect the gastrointestinal tract, the intestines, and in fact diarrhea is one of the atypical manifestations of this disease. Person may not have cold, running nose or fever, he may have diarrhea or some abdominal problems, and that may be the only manifestation of corona. So corona has a predilection to affect several organs. In fact, you know that loss of taste and smell is also one very well known symptom that is not really seen in most other viral infections. So this is so that is why it affects various areas, maybe some of the nerves, and it is no longer something which can be only called limited to the lungs.
Absolutely. And on that note, we are going in for another short break. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll talk to Dr. Anant Mohan about the dangerous cocktail of corona and how it affects kids.
विज्ञान तथा प्रौद्योगिकी के प्रति लोगों की रुचि जगाने के उद्देश्य से साल 2019 में इंडिया साइंस चैनल की शुरुआत की गई। विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग द्वारा शुरू किया गया इंटरनेट आधारित ये विज्ञान वेब चैनल विभाग के स्वायत्त संस्थान विज्ञान प्रसार द्वारा संचालित किया जा रहा है। इस चैनल पर विज्ञान पर आधारित डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज, ताज़ा विषयों पर स्टूडियो चर्चा, साक्षात्कार और हर आयु वर्ग को आकर्षित करने वाली विज्ञान लघु फिल्में और साप्ताहिक कार्यक्रम प्रसारित किए जा रहे हैं। सोशल मीडिया और इंटरनेट की पहुंच आज हर जगह, हर व्यक्ति तक है। ऐसे में देश में वैज्ञानिक चेतना के प्रसार के लिए ये माध्यम सबसे उपयुक्त कहा जा सकता है।
Welcome back, and we are in conversation on the other side of the pandemic. Let's talk health at India Science with Dr. Anant Mohan, HOD, AIIMS Pulmonary Wing. Schools have been shut down and a lot of children are indoors, no playgrounds as well open for them. So are you seeing a lot of inflow for children? Are they susceptible? Because according to most studies which we have heard, it is the elderly and the healthcare workers who seem to be more susceptible. What is your take on that?
Yeah, in a way, yes. It is not that children have not been affected. Children have been affected by the virus, but fortunately the level of intensity and severity in them has been comparatively lesser, and that is a very good thing. Although again, we would not like to kind of lower our guard down. Children have to be as careful as everybody else as far as this precautions are concerned. And and yes, by the opening of schools, that would be a major decision, and one will have to do it in a very, very careful manner, I think, because the problem with children is that they know the things, but still, you know, you can't really force them to wear the mask all the time. The social distancing may not happen in schools. So all these problems they are practical problems which will happen, and one has to take them into account.
So you also mentioned about oxygen earlier as well in the program. Now I want to ask you, if a patient needs to be shifted with a high flow oxygen, why is it so dangerous for the patient to be shifted?
Well, high flow nasal oxygen means that the person really requires a pretty good dose of oxygen. It is not just a simple oxygen cannula at 2 to 3 liters per minute. It would be at much higher level. That means the person is not able to sustain his breath and oxygenation at lower levels of oxygen. And that is why the problem comes that if you want to transfer somebody from one place to the another on such a high flow nasal oxygen, it is always risky, because what will happen on the way one doesn't know, and then either you have a very good setup on the way that everything can be taken care of and patient immediately comes to the next center and is immediately given the same level of treatment, but practically that becomes difficult, and if something happens on the way, then you know it becomes difficult for the person going along with the patient to take care. So that is why we usually it becomes difficult to shift a patient on high flow nasal cannula. Sometimes it may be easier to shift on ventilator actually, because at least the ventilator is doing the job properly. So as long as that is working, you can do it. High flow nasal cannula is in a way, shifting on this is always a little bit dicey, I would say.
And when does one go on high flow nasal oxygen? Is it because of severe lung disorder?
Yeah. So that all depends upon the oxygenation that the person is able to do for himself and his own lungs can maintain, and there are parameters like the arterial blood gas analysis and the oxygen saturation that we monitor to look at that. When certain parameters go down, that we obviously start first with plain oxygen, but if the maximum dose of plain oxygen is not adequate, then we have to shift over to other means like high flow nasal cannula, which is able to deliver higher flow of oxygen, higher rate of oxygen and higher concentration of oxygen also to the patient without going for ventilation. That is, ventilator is not required at that time.
What about isolation and quarantine? How do you look at that?
So there are two different things. Quarantine means staying in alone in a with physical social distancing in a person who is not diseased, but he is susceptible. So maybe a close contact or a family member of a patient. So if he goes, he stays away, he is quarantined. Isolation means a person who has already acquired the disease. So he is in a separate place. So quarantine is for a person who is not yet diseased. Isolation is a term used for a person who has already acquired the infection. That is the basic difference.
Yes, absolutely. But on that note, we are seeing these days, in fact, a lot of people I know also have contacted it and they are being isolated in their own homes. Do you think that is the right thing because of paucity of beds? The home is being isolated and there are other members who have not got the disease.
Yeah, so that is why of course paucity of beds was a major factor. If you know, in the initial part of the pandemic it was mandatory to admit everybody, but then as the numbers rose to thousands and lakhs, it became obvious that it is putting too much of strain on the medical resources, and because most of these patients were actually asymptomatic or very mildly symptomatic, to keep them in a hospital for 10 days, 14 days was not really proving to be practically feasible, and that is why some certain criteria were laid down, that if these facilities at home are available, then the person may choose to stay at home isolated, and there was a checklist of these particular facilities like a separate toilet, bathroom and separate room of this size, and so all these facilities, if they are there, patient has to give an undertaking that he will fulfill all those facilities and then he is allowed to stay at home in isolation.
Absolutely. And another thing that I would like to ask you now is, how good are you with ventilators, if we talk only about your department, sir?
Well, in our department, I think we are fairly okay. We have ventilators for all our ICU beds and we have some additional ones also in case some ventilator goes out of order or somebody in the ward suddenly becomes sick. So I think we take a lot of care and we pay a lot of attention to the quality of our critical care unit, including ventilators, and we make sure that we have adequate supply and one of the best qualities are also there. And then of course we have to ensure adequate training. Our residents and our faculty are pretty well trained in that, and we try to ensure that we hold adequate educations, adequate practical exercises, adequate academics also, to make sure that they are up to date with the best possible knowledge.
So 2021 according to you would go better than 2020, and on that note, many thanks for joining us. More power to you, and more power to All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And to all our viewers, we have spoken about the deadly cocktail of COVID and lungs, and here's wishing you healthy lungs. On that note, many thanks for watching. Namaskar.